Welcome to Karaoke Live. Today is our World Suicide Prevention Day episode. Today is the 47th episode of Karaoke Live Friday Night Live and the third part of our series focusing on suicide prevention. Tonight's episode will feature original music, including my new song Apocalyptic, karaoke covers, and information on World Suicide Prevention Day, which is this coming Monday, September 10th. The theme this year is working together to prevent suicide, which is exactly what we are doing today. Before we get to the music, I'm going to interview Spirit, who is joining us today via Skype. Welcome, Spirit. Hello. Thank you for joining us.
My pleasure, beautiful lady. Hello to everybody.
Hello. So, I asked Spirit to be on the show tonight because of World Suicide Prevention Day and because she is the leading expert on mental health. Spirit is a licensed psychotherapist, media personality, wife, and devoted mother of 7. For more than 15 years, she has delivered the answer to some of life's most challenging questions while helping men, women, and children all over the country transform their lives. As a national certified counselor, licensed professional counselor, certified forensic mental health evaluator, certified parenting coordinator, ordained marriage officiant, and child sexual abuse prevention facilitator, Spirit's quick-witted approach and practical advice has been changing the way we think about love, life, relationships, and everything in between. Spirit's quest to change the nation's perspectives on mental health issues began in 2003 when she hosted the nightly sex talk show, The Pleasure Zone. The 3-hour live call-in show allowed listeners to get answers and information from A to Z on all matters related to love, sex, and relationships. Since that time, this creative arts agency talent has gone on to become a nationally recognizable relationship expert, social commentator, life coach, and transformative voice heard around the world. Spirit works with couples, single men and women, adolescents, youth, and families as a therapist, life coach, researcher, motivational speaker, and workshop facilitator. In addition to helping individuals tackle life's everyday problems, Spirit's specialties include parenting and family issues, relationship intimacy, and educating the public on mental health and wellness in a way that is informative, engaging, and easy to understand. Her down-to-earth approach promotes empathy and understanding while eliminating the stigma commonly associated with life's most challenging issues. And, in addition to her current work, behind the camera and microphone, Spirit has transformed countless lives as the former host of Fox's The Daily Helpline, Sirius XM's nightly radio show Talking with Spirit, and as the resident psychotherapist for programs including My Current Situation Atlanta on BET and Centric, Dr. Drew On Call on HLN, The Bill Cunningham Show, which is now syndicated, Rickey Smiley for Real on TV1, Sister Circle Live, which is syndicated, Across America with Carol Costello on HLN, and the nationally syndicated radio show The Rickey Smiley Morning Show. She is also the owner and clinical director of the group practice T2S Enterprises, LLC, based in Atlanta, Georgia. Spirit's genuine passion for helping people live the lives they aspire to live allows her to give listeners and viewers an overall experience unlike any other. There isn't too much in life that I haven't experienced, says Spirit, and I use it all to help people improve every area of their lives. Welcome once again, Spirit. Thank you so much for agreeing to be on the show.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe that you actually got through all of that.
Yes, it's quite an impressive bio. I'm so excited that you agreed to be on the show today.
And, my pleasure. My pleasure.
Especially ahead of World Suicide Prevention Day, which is on September 10th. According to 2013 data, as we all have been reminded of this year, 33,000 people die from gun violence every year in the United States. The issues of gun violence have been on everyone's mind, especially after the Parkland shooting this past February. We all agree mass shootings and any death resulting from a gun is horrific, tragic, preventable. But did you know that nearly 45,000 lost their lives to suicide in 2016 in the United States? This is according to a report released by the Center for Disease Control on June 7, 2018. The same report also states that suicide rates have gone up more than 30% in half of the states since 1999 and is the leading cause of death in the U.S. Horrific, tragic, preventable. Worldwide, over 800,000 people die by suicide annually. According to the International Association for Suicide Prevention, suicide is the 15th leading cause of death globally and is the leading cause of death in people aged 15 to 24 in many European countries. Yet we rarely hear about suicide prevention as we do gun violence prevention. We should fight just as hard to prevent both kinds of tragedies from happening. Spirit, why don't you talk about suicide? Why don't we talk about suicide as we do gun violence, car accidents, and other tragedies? Why is World Suicide Prevention Day so needed?
Well, unfortunately, there's so much still about suicide that we don't understand. And so when we don't understand something, it makes it difficult for us to talk about it because we really don't know what to do. It leaves us feeling really powerless. And unfortunately, until we continue to have these national suicide days, these national suicide prevention days, like what we're talking about this coming Monday, you will continue to have unfortunate suicides, not just in one particular population, meaning all men or all women, not just in our older population or our younger population, but across the board. Suicide is a major issue across the board. And until we get real about it and until we know how to talk about it, we're going to continue to have it be the music that plays in the background of our lives.
And it's something that we really don't talk about. You hear about things like Kate Spade, Anthony Bourdain, and recently Mac Miller, just today, found in his home dead at age 26. Now, they don't know the cause of death. They haven't run the autopsy yet. However, TMZ suspects it of a drug overdose. And self-harm largely occurs among older adolescents and globally is the second leading cause of death for older adolescent girls. In 2012, 76% of global suicide occurred in low and middle income countries, 39% of which occurred in Southeast Asia region. Globally, suicide rates among people aged 15 to 24 are higher in males than females. And suicide is the result of a convergence of risk factors, included but not limited to genetic, psychological, social, and cultural risk factors, sometimes combined with experiences of trauma and loss. Those facts are from the official World Suicide Prevention Day press sheet. The CDC report mentioned earlier states that 54%, more than half of the people who died by suicide, did not have a known health condition. And that other factors that contribute to suicide are things like relationship problems, loss of housing, and a criminal legal problem. Spirit, you were on the Rickey Smiley Morning Show on December 2nd of 2017 discussing how things like holidays, the passing of a loved one, and relationships can be especially stressful to people. You were also on the Rickey Smiley Morning Show in June, taking callers' questions and advising them on difficulty of family relationships and how they need to take care of themselves, whether it was going to counseling, even if a significant other won't, confronting a mother who didn't know or confronting a mother about who the biological father was, or even just making sure a partner didn't take on too much stress when trying to help their significant other. And as we know, also things like drug addiction and suicide is something that affects both those that are wealthy, as the celebrities passing, and those in the lower income range. So what are the other potential causes of suicide that people don't think about?
The number one cause of suicide really is hopelessness. It is not believing my situation could ever get any better than it is now. And so if I am unhappy and I am hopeless in my situation, then I see suicide as a way out. It's a way to end my suffering. It's a way to stop all of this. And oftentimes I don't think my doing so is really going to hurt people. In fact, I may believe if I'm suicidal, that ending my life or taking my life will actually bring relief to those who love me because they'll no longer have to care for me. I'll no longer be a burden to them. Or, even worse, they won't even miss me. Unfortunately, though, we all know that that couldn't be further from the truth.
That is true. And for every one suicide, 25 people make a suicide attempt. 135 people are affected by each suicide death. This equates to 108 million people bereaved by suicide worldwide every year. Relatives and close friends of people who died by suicide are a high-risk group for suicide. CNN reported this year that mental health experts agree that several high-profile celebrity suicides could possibly cause an increased risk of what's called suicide contagion. Suicide contagion is defined by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services as the exposure to suicide or suicidal behaviors within one's family, one's peer group, or through media reports of suicide, and can result in an increase in suicide and suicidal behaviors. Direct and indirect exposure to suicidal behavior has been shown to precede an increase in suicidal behavior in persons at risk for suicide, especially in adolescents and young adults. My friend Dalton Ofoye was one of the 45,000 who took their lives in 2016. And I would think that suicide rates would go down when someone close to you or a national figure commits suicide. Spirit, why are people affected by suicide contagion, and what advice do you have for people who know of someone who has committed suicide?
Well, it makes it that much more real to you. It makes it that much more possible to you and for you. And also, it increases your own suffering. If somebody that you love commits suicide and is successful in completing suicide, then now you are left to pick up the pieces of their life. That may cause you to have more grief. It may cause you to feel more lost, or it actually may cause you to feel jealous of the fact that they're no longer suffering if you believe that you are left behind to have to suffer. And so when we talk about these things, it's not much different than the idea of peer pressure. If my friends are doing something, then it may increase the likelihood that I will do it too.
Mm. And I know Spirit talks about a lot of this stuff on her social media because I follow her on her social media. I recently started following her. And you have a free advice Friday Facebook live show every Friday, giving out free advice to Facebook commenters. And your tweets on Twitter are so educational. Like, you've been talking about the CDC report. I didn't know that the stats you were actually retweeting were actually from the CDC report. So I looked at it today. And you were also on Sister Circle Live YouTube show in July discussing your 31-day de-stress challenge, in which you posted 31 days to de-stress to your Instagram. One of your recent Instagram posts that I saw said, "Fine is not a feeling." What do you mean by fine is not a feeling? I think that's so powerful.
I'm so glad that you asked. This idea that we walk through life so often, not really being aware of how people are doing, and honestly, not even being aware of how we're doing. We become this politically correct society that's disconnected and detached from one another. So when someone says, "Hey, how are you doing?" we typically say things like, "I'm fine, I'm good, I'm okay." And the reality is that none of those things are feelings. And so when somebody says, "I'm fine," I challenge people to ask a deeper question, to pause and to not accept fine as a feeling, because it's not. So when someone says, "How are you feeling?" and you say, "I'm fine," that doesn't tell us how you're doing. Are you happy? Are you sad? Are you anxious? Are you nervous? Are you depressed? Those are feelings. And if you are not in connection or have enough awareness about how you're feeling, those kinds of things can ultimately spiral out of control and put you in a very isolated place that takes you to those dark places of hopelessness and ultimately putting you at greater risk of suicide.
Mm. Thank you for sharing that. And how can people get in contact with you?
Well, if they want to follow me on social media, that is one way to do it. You can always find me at Talk to Spirit at all of my social media. It's Talk the number 2 Spirit. And I do something different on all of my social media pages. So if you're looking for daily motivationals, then you can come over to Twitter, for example, and I have Daily Spirits there. If you're looking for lots of daily motivations, you can go there and just hit that hashtag, do a search for hashtag Daily Spirit, and they'll all pop up. I've been doing it for years. On Instagram, you will find some of those awesome memes to keep you going. And sometimes I talk to you directly there, those videos, those check-ins to make sure that everything is going well for you. And of course, on Facebook, as you mentioned, those free advice Friday chats each and every Friday at noon Eastern Standard Time, 9 a.m. bright and early on the West Coast. We do live chats with a variety of different therapists every week to answer all of your questions about any and everything related to mental health. And if you've ever joined a chat, you know that I say that everything that's happening in your life is associated with your mental health. So whether it's relationships, family, jobs, mental illness, diagnosis, medication management, you name it. If you need to talk to someone, if you have questions, if you need tips, tools, or resources, you can always find me there. And of course, if you ever need a therapist or if you need a referral for a great therapist, you can contact us at T2S Enterprises. The number is 888-718-2T2S. Again, 888-718-2T2S.
Thank you so much. That's so helpful and answered one of my questions. Where can people go to find good therapists? They can go to T2S Enterprises. Can you give them the number again?
Sure thing. That's 888-718-2T2S. And of course, there are tons of directories out there. We'll be happy to point you in the right direction. Or you can feel free to go online to any search engine that you'd like to. Look up therapists in your area and understand that the first therapist that pops up is not necessarily your therapist.
So
When you're choosing a great therapist, you want to talk about what is important to you and how your relationship with that therapist will help you meet those goals. And so I encourage you to do your homework. Look at those therapist profiles, look at their photos, decide what you want as it relates to a great therapist. Do you want a man? Do you want a woman? Does it matter to you? What kinds of issues would you like to be working on? What expertise or life skills would you like for them to bring to the counseling session? Don't be afraid to call a couple of therapists and do some free consultations to just kind of interview them and let them tell you all about who they are so that you can determine the best therapist for you. That is how you do it. And don't hesitate to reach out because we all deserve good mental health and wellness counseling. No matter what we're going through, no matter where we are in our life, everybody can use a dope therapist.
Yes, and how important is it to find therapists that look like you? I know sometimes, like as a black woman, when I like used to go to therapy, it was hard to connect with people. And now that I've gotten more race conscious, I've learned that maybe it's because they didn't quite understand when I talk about racism or women issues. So how important is it to have a therapist that looks like you?
Yeah, well, I think that it depends on what your issue is and how important those things are to you. Some people will say, it's so important, for example, as you said, as a black woman, to have a black woman therapist. Some people may not be so lucky, or some people may not care at all. Some things can work for you or against you in the counseling setting. And so it's important to be aware of those things. And so for somebody who says, listen, I would love to find a therapist who is a female of color, I would say take a look at a website like Therapy for Black Girls or Melanated Therapy and Counseling. There are tons of resources out there for individuals who say, I want a Christian counselor or a Muslim counselor or a counselor who's been married or divorced or works with trauma, who works with addiction. You name it, there are counselors all over the place who specialize in particular areas who would be excited to work with you. And at the end of the day, what you're talking about is culture, and cultural competency matters. Having someone who understands who you are and where you come from in order to be able to relate and connect with your struggles. That is important. And representation matters. It is so, so very important.
And you talked about therapy for black girls. I know when I was reading a bit more about you and researching you for this show, I saw that you were actually on one of their podcasts on April 24th of this year. The podcast is called Shedding Your Superwoman Status, and it's a really interesting concept because the black superwoman complex, it's the idea that the black women are invincible, indestructible, and can save all of the ills in the world in one fell swoop. And you on that episode shared why this is so damaging and exhausting for sisters and why we should do our best to opt out of this story. Can you elaborate a little more on that?
Absolutely, because I actually say that for 2019, that has to be one of our slogans. No caping in 2019. So we have to get these women taking these superwoman capes off. It is dangerous because the idea of a superwoman is a fallacy. It is a myth. It is a farce that does not exist. And if we do not get real about those things, we will continue to try to strive for a perfection that is impossible, and we will crack under the weight. Unfortunately, what we have been taught as a culture about Black women in so many ways is not true. And Black women don't get to simply be human first. They're expected to be just that, superhuman. And so we know that the reality of that is that there is no superhuman on this planet. There is nobody that possesses more power than another. We are all doing the best we can, and some of us have better coping skills than others, and we can make it look a lot easier. But at the end of the day, we are all in this struggle together. And so when people say that famous phrase that Black don't crack, I often say, oh yes, it does. It cracks from the inside out.
Wow, that is powerful because I know I say that all the time because people mistake me for being like a little teenager. And I'll be like, well, I got that good melanin. But it is interesting to look at that from a different perspective.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, not just depression and suicide prevention and things have a stigma, but counseling and therapy itself has a stigma. What is the point of people going to counseling and therapy? Why should people go to counseling and therapy?
Yeah, I'm so glad that you asked that question because you are absolutely right. There is a major stigma that is associated with mental health and wellness or seeking help for your mental health and wellness. And I hope that as we continue to have conversations like this, that we will actually reduce and eliminate that stigma ultimately. The reality is that we all have mental health. We all, if you have a brain and you are functioning, you have mental health. And so, what we need to know about that and what we need to be very aware of is that we do not see our mental health in the same way that we see our physical health, but they are both connected. And so when we are not feeling well in our bodies, it can affect our emotional or psychological functioning, and vice versa. When our psychological or mental health is not well, it can affect our physical functioning. So it's important that we understand that. And unfortunately, particularly in many of the various culture groups, we have learned that if you need help for your psychological or emotional functioning, that somehow means that something is wrong with you,
Right.
that you somehow weak, that you cannot deal with the pressures of a normal society. And the reality is that that could not be further from the truth. I ask people when we talk about things like medication management and taking medication for mental health issues, oftentimes people feel stressed out or frustrated by the idea of doing that. Yet we have no problems taking medication for, say, high blood pressure or pursuing chemotherapy if we develop a blood cancer or any other type of cancer for that matter. And so until we begin to look at the connection between our mind and our body as one, we will continue to think that there is somehow something wrong with us if we find that we need assistance in regulating our emotions, in processing and dealing with our experiences in this life. And the reality is that we all have hard times. We all have things that challenge us, that disappoint us, that hurt us, that cause us to see the world differently. Or we could just use a different perspective or new coping skills in order to continue to live our very best lives. And so I think that at the end of the day, unfortunately, so many of us do not know what counseling is. And even more of us, unfortunately, have not had the opportunity to interface with an amazing therapist. And so I encourage people, go to counseling, give yourself the gift of at least one session. And if that session is not good, or it's not, let me say better, if it's not awesome, then continue to stay in the fight until you find an awesome therapist. Because great, awesome, amazing therapists are out here doing great work to help you change your life and live the life that you want to live right now.
And are you doing anything for World Suicide Prevention Day?
Actually, I'm doing things all month long.
Right, it's National Suicide Prevention Month.
Actually, yeah, so the 10th is actually National Suicide Prevention Day, but all month long, this is National Recovery Month as well. And so what I'm challenging people to do all month long in that vein of understanding that recovery from mental illness is possible, including substance abuse and addiction. I want people to know that that's possible and that there are great strides being made in finding and maintaining that mind-body connection. So all month long in my office, we are offering free Zumba and free yoga classes in order to teach you that breath work, that meditation, how to get present, and that mindfulness training, how to understand and move your body and understand what it means to do that and improve your overall mental health and wellness. And so we're offering those free classes. We have the free yoga every Monday evening at 6:30 or 6:45, I believe, until 8. And on Thursday evenings from 6:30 to 7:30. And we've, to sweeten the deal, if you will, in order to get you inspired about doing this, as if free wasn't enough, we're also going to throw in free therapy sessions for anybody that completes an entire series. So if you do all 4 yoga sessions or if you do all 4 Zumba sessions, then you're also going to get a free sit down with one of our therapists. And so we do things like this all the time, looking to continue to promote the mental health message, looking to bring mental health and wellness to our communities where we need it the most, and looking to remove any reason that you could think of to say mental health counseling is not for me. It's free, it's fun, We're here, we care, and we love you.
And where can people go for more information? I assume your website.
Yeah, they can come to my website, or the easiest place to go, they can go right to my IG page. I think one of my most current posts up there is the advertisement for the Zumba and the yoga with the therapy. Yes, and I think I also may have posted earlier this week, actually, one of our areas. So right before we went in to do the yoga session. So they'll be able to even take a sneak peek at what the area looks like to be able to work out. So just go to Talk to Spirit, like me, friend me, follow me, do all of that great stuff, and also share what it is that you see. Because the real deal is, oftentimes people suffer in silence, and the person that may be suffering the most may be sitting right next to you if it's not you. So be a great friend. Check in on your friends, share that positive stuff that will help everybody, and understand that no matter what it looks like, we are really all in this thing together.
Yes, and do you have any last words?
My last words is really just to know that you are not alone. And no matter what you're going through, no matter how hard something seems, no matter how tough it feels like, no matter how long it's been happening, I want you to understand that change is always possible. And that if you can't figure out a way to find your way to the light, then link arms with somebody who is there for you, somebody that will help you, somebody that will show up and stand in the gap for you. And if you don't know who that person is, then you pick up the phone. You call a suicide prevention hotline. You call 911. You call anybody and say, I'm in trouble. I think I need help. And I tell you, the cavalry will come.
All right. Thank you so much for being here. I know I could just talk to you all night, but I'll let you go. Thank you so much for being on the show.
My pleasure. You guys have a great evening. Thanks so much.
There we go. Click the end. So, again, special thanks to Spirit. And if you have any questions, you can also comment them. And yes, today I do have a little new device for the show. We have a little, hopefully you guys can hear me better through this. Because sometimes I've noticed that I'm really quiet. So, that was a great, very informative interview. And if you think that this could help somebody, then be sure to send this to them and share it. And again, you can comment any of your questions below. So, we're also, now is the portion that we're going to sing some music, but I just want to give the National Prevention Suicide Lifeline in case you or somebody you know is suicidal. And if this is an emergency, please dial 911. You can call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-8255. Again, the number is 1-800-273-8255. Thank you guys. And all of her information, Spirit's information, is right there behind me on this beautiful flyer that Keith from Designs by Keith made. So, let's get on with the show. So, Dalton Ofori was my friend. And, in 2016, he was one of the 45,000 that did commit suicide. So let's talk about, the CDC just released a report, which I talked about earlier, about suicide rising across the U.S. And in it, they talk about some known suicide, the 12 suicide warning signs. So I'm going to read those off now, and then we'll get into some songs. So, the 12 suicide warning signs are: 1. Feeling like a burden. 2. Being isolated. 3. Increased anxiety. 4. Feeling trapped or in unbearable pain. 5. Increased substance abuse. 6. Looking for a way to access lethal means. 7. Increased anger or rage. 8. Extreme mood swings. 9. Expressing hopelessness. 10. Sleeping too little or too much. 11. Talking or posting about wanting to die. And 12. Making plans for suicide. So, and they also list 5 steps to help someone at risk. Ask, keep them safe, be there, help them connect, and follow up. So this song is in honor of Dalton 040, and it's called Only My Memories. It was written the day that I found out that my friend had committed suicide. I don't even know what to write. I just heard the news today. I heard you took your life. That's not okay. I wish I had been around, took you through like I did before. So when those demons came around, you wouldn't have even opened the door. Would it have made a difference? I don't even know. All I know is the world feels different without your soul. So here I am left with your memories, the good, the bad, the beautiful. You always saw the best in me when I didn't even see it in myself. So here I am left with your picture on my phone in front of me. The friendships I made because of you while looking at your obituary. And I know you had your flaws, but you were always good to me. Wish I would have given you another call. So I wanna be left with only my memories. We're only desperately friends now. Still don't wanna believe that it's true. But there's no coming back from the place you went. We will never forget you. You washed my hair, helped me with my PTSD. You took me and tried to get me to take another road. You did the best you could, gave me food to eat. I wish I had been there to convince you down another road. Would it have made a difference? I don't even know. All I know is the world feels different without your soul. So here I am left with your memories, the good, the bad, the beautiful. You always saw the best in me when I didn't even see it in myself. So here I am left with your picture on my phone in front of me. The friendships I made because of you while looking at your obituary. And I know you had your flaws, but you were always good to me. I wish I would have given you another call. So I wanna be left with only my memories. So here I am left with your memories, the good, the bad, the beautiful. You always saw the best in me when I didn't even see it in myself. So here I am left with your picture on my phone in front of me. The friendships I made because of you while looking at your obituary. And I know you had your flaws, but you were always good to me. Wish I would have given you another call. So I wanna be left with only my memories. When you commit suicide, you affect everyone who knew you. And depression is a real issue. Could I have been a better friend? Wouldn't I prevent it in the end? You had your best friend around you, and I can't even imagine what she's going through. I want to be mad at you, but I know it was your disease, that thorn in your side. I just wish someone could have helped you so you wouldn't have taken your life that night. So here I am left with your memories, the good, the bad, the beautiful. You always saw the best in me when I didn't even see it in myself. So here I am left with your picture on my phone in front of me. The friendships I made because of you while looking at your obituary. And I know you had your flaws, but you were always good to me. I wish I would have given you another call. So I wanna be left with only my memories. And once again, if you or someone you know is suicidal, call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-8255. Again, the number is 1-800-273-8255. I know that interview was amazing and so educational and so much to process. In the vein of thinking about the interview and just different things about, what people feel like, and about my friend Dalton Ofori, who inspired this whole series, of which this is the third. Here's the chorus, still working on it, to my new song, Apocalyptic. Your death feels apocalyptic, because I feel like I could have started, and now it's haunting me. Your ghost tells me I've gotta help those in need. I've gotta take the weight of the world on my shoulders, because there's no excuse why you didn't get older. But you committed suicide. You cursed me to live my life without you, when I knew and didn't do all that I could do. It's world ending, apocalyptic, and your death feels apocalyptic, because I feel like I could have stopped it, and now it's haunting me. Your ghost tells me I've gotta help those in need. I've gotta take the weight of the world on my shoulders, because there's no excuse why you didn't get older, but you committed suicide. You cursed me to live my life without you, when I knew and didn't do all that I could do. It's world ending, apocalyptic. Again, echo in spirit, if you know someone that has committed suicide and it's affecting you, call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-8255, or talk to Spirit and find a mental health counselor for yourself. Because mental health is such an important issue, and we really need to talk more about it in our society. As I've talked about before, we live in a society that just praises being unhealthy and having unhealthy habits. And that's really something that needs to change. We really need to have an honest conversation and just asking people, how are you feeling? And not accepting fine as an answer. And if you see your friends posting suicidal things, give them the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, or talk to them and see how they're doing. Suicide is a preventable issue, and 45,000 people in 2016 committed suicide, according to that CDC report. 33,000 died by gun violence. Yet which one do we talk about more? They're both horrific, tragic, and preventable. We can do something about the leading cause of death in the U.S. We can do something about the 800,000 deaths per year. We can do something about the 24 people who attempt suicide who still live. We can do something. We can be there. We can be the change. If you want to participate in activities for World Suicide Prevention Day or National Suicide Prevention Day, they do have a website that lists all of the activities that are going on, and they also have press kits and stuff. A lot of the facts that I'm getting here tonight are actually from those press kits. And you can go to iasp.info/WSPD 2018. I'm going to link all the articles, all the reports, all the different shows that I talked about, and of course Spirit's social media. I'm going to link them all in the description after the show. But once again, the info for World Suicide Prevention Day is iasp.info/WSPD 2018. Again, iasp.info/WSPD 2018. So you can go there to learn more about World Suicide Prevention Day on September 10th. And this is hosted by the International Association for Suicide Prevention. Next, obviously, this is a special 1-hour show. I'm going to sing Growing Pains by Elisa Cara. And I'm going to sing her acoustic version on the piano karaoke instrumental. So it's going to be on the piano, so it's going to sound a little different.
Sip.
And this is just an ad.
Win. Tweet high school boyfriend. Who's missing out now, Jeremy?
Let's see. Just waiting for the ad. A couple more seconds. Alright. It's originally performed by Lisa Carr. This is the piano version. Let me start that over. And it's buffering a little bit, so if you hear delays, that's what's going on. My way through emotions, I try to ignore it. Comes looking further, the closer I get. Don't know why I can't see the end. Is it over yet? A short leash and a short fuse don't match. They tell me it ain't them bad. Now don't you overreact. So I just hold my breath. Don't know why I can't see the sun when young should be fun. And I guess the bad can get better. Gotta be wrong before it's right. Every happy phrase engraved in my mind, and I've always been a go-getter. There's truth in every word I write, but still the growing pains, they're keeping me up at night. Dreaming what's left of my consent, incomprehension, as I take on the stress of the mess that I'm me. Don't know if I even care for grown, if it's just alone. Yeah, I guess the bad can get better. Gotta be wrong before it's right. Every happy phrase engraved in my mind. And I've always been a go-getter. There's truth in every word I write. Still growing pains, keeping me up at night. And I can't hide, those growing pains are keeping me up at night. And I can't hide, growing pains are keeping me up at night. And I really like this song. I think it, says like a lot about just what we're talking to. It's about growing up and the difficulties you face growing up. We think as kids that like when we grow up, then like things are gonna be 100%, right? Like we shouldn't have the stresses and stuff. I mean, we see the stresses of our parents, but come on now. But as we grow up, we like reality just sets in. And even when you're a kid, like life is hard for everyone. And I really just like how this song tackles this issue, because really she is talking about mental health and growing up and the things that we face. So I just want to sing that first part again. Lisa Carr's Growing Pains, the piano version by Sing Two Pianos YouTube. Make my way through the motions, I try to ignore it, but home's looking farther, closer again. Don't know why I can't see the end. Is it over yet? A short leash and a short fuse don't match. They tell me it ain't them bad. Now don't you overreact. So I just hold my breath. Don't know why I can't see the sun when young should be fun. I guess the bad can long before it's right. Every happy phrase engraved in my mind. And I've always been a go-getter. There's truth in every word I write. But still the growing pains keeping me up at night. And I can't hide, 'cause growing pains are keeping me up at night. And I can't hide, growing pains are keeping me up at night. And I really like that song. So the other karaoke version that I actually want to do is Keith Urban's "Tonight I Wanna Cry," and I think it just also talks about like when you hear stories like Mac Miller's, and when you Kate Spade, Anthony Bourdain, when you hear or when you just have a friend, a personal friend, somebody who doesn't make the news, all of the other 45,000 that don't make the news. I think it's okay to let yourself cry and to understand that, like, it's okay to cry. It's okay to feel emotions. It's okay to feel sadness. And it took me personally like a long time to learn that. But I think, and I especially like the song because of one of its lines where it says like what he thought being a man was. When it's just society that tells us, how we should act or how we should behave. So I really, really, I've liked the song ever since I was a kid and it came out. For that reason, I feel like it gave me permission to cry. There was a celebrity, Keith Urban, someone that I listened to, that was saying that he was crying. And it made me feel like, whether it was ghostwritten or not, or I don't actually know, but it made me feel like it was okay. And made me feel like I wasn't so alone. And as Spirit said, just know you are not alone in how you feel. So Keith Urban's "Tonight I Wanna Cry" karaoke version off of YouTube. And here's another ad. Here we go. "Tonight I Wanna Cry" by Keith Urban. Alone in this house again tonight. Got the TV on, the sound turned down, and I bought a wine. There's pictures of you and I on the walls around me. The way that it was and could have been surround me, but I'll never get over you walking away. And I've never been the kind to ever let my feelings show. And I thought that being strong meant never losing your self-control, but I'm just drunk enough to let go of my pain, to with my pride, let it fall like rain from my eyes. Tonight I wanna cry. Would it help if I turned and said someone all by myself would sure hit me hard now that you're gone? Or maybe some old yellow lost love letters is gonna happen before it gets better, but I'll never get over you by hiding this way, no. 'Cause I've never been the kind to ever let my feelings I've never been the kind to ever in my feelings wrong. And I thought that being strong meant never losing your self-control. But I'm just jumping up to let go of this pain, to witness pride, made it fall like rain from my eyes. Tonight I wanna cry. It's okay to cry. It's okay to feel emotion. Let's talk about some more facts. So let me pull up. So we've talked about a lot of facts, especially in the interview, but let's go over some more facts. Depression is the most common psychiatric disorder in people who die by suicide. 50% of individuals in high-income countries who die by suicide have major depressive disorder at their time of death. But as we found out by the CDC report, more than half of people that commit suicide in the United States don't have a previous mental condition. Effective suicide prevention strategies need to incorporate public health policy strategies and healthcare strategies, incorporated measures with the strongest evidence of efficacy, such as restriction of access to lethal means, treatment of depression, ensuring chain of care, and school-based universe prevention. And this is from the International Association for Suicide Prevention, who is hosting the World Suicide Prevention Day on September 10th, 2018. Again, I'll put links in the description and little cards. So after the show, and so by Saturday those should be live and active, so you can rewatch this to get all of that information. I also want to go into this CDC report. You know, the Center for Disease Control that released this report just this year. And some of the things they say states and communities can do is identify and support people at risk of suicide, teach coping and problem-solving skills to help people manage challenges with their relationships, jobs, health, or other concerns, promote safe and supportive environments. This includes safely storing medications and firearms to reduce access among people at risk. Other activities that bring people together so they feel connected and not alone, or offer activities that bring people together so they feel connected and not alone. Expand options for temporary help for those struggling to make ends meet. And prevent future risk of suicide among those who have lost a loved one to suicide. And also, another thing that suicide rates have increased in almost every state. There's no state, no wealth amount that suicide just doesn't touch. I mean, as she said, anyone that's living has mental health. And so we need to protect our mental health. And so this report is really great. It talks about what the federal government is doing. So in case you're wondering, the federal government is tracking the problem to describe trends, circumstances, and populations at greatest risk. They're developing and implementing and evaluating suicide prevention strategies, and they are working with local, state, tribal, national, and other partners to provide guidance and distribute suicide prevention tools. And if you have any suggestions, or again, you can share this video with anyone that you know that might need to see the interview that we did in the beginning of the show, or this video now. And yeah, don't forget to also like the video if you like it, and comment what you think about suicide prevention. Let's have an open dialogue. Let's talk about this issue that just doesn't get talked about. I We talk about a lot of things in America, but one of the things that we just shy away from is talking about our mental health for many reasons that were discussed earlier in the show and that have been discussed in this 3-part series. So this Monday, September 10th, you can join me, Spirit, and others across the world who are playing their part in the prevention of suicide. And again, all month long is National Suicide Prevention Month. And again, you can, I'll link the websites and everything down there. But for more information on World Suicide Prevention Day, go to iasp.info/WSPD 2018. So thank you guys for joining me today. And we'll be back next week for another one. And so, thanks for all the views, thanks for all the love, thanks for all the commenting that you have done. No, you're not alone. Pick up the phone. Make sure you check in with everyone. I just made that up on the spot. But, just call someone tonight, see how they're doing. Don't accept fine as an answer. Don't accept okay as an answer. And you can do your part, but also remember to protect yourself. Even though I know it feels like it can be apocalyptic when someone close to us commits suicide. Whether it's you feel the need to make sure you help everybody so that this never happens again and you just put the weight of the world on your shoulders, or whether you shrink away and you isolate yourself. We all need each other. Come out of isolation. If you're watching this in isolation, stop taking the whole weight of the world on your shoulders. If you're trying to be like me and be a superwoman, let's ditch our capes. Let's just be normal people. Or not normal, I've always not liked that term, but let's just be regular people. And let's open this dialogue. So open this dialogue with someone you know. So that's my last word to you guys. And thank you guys for watching. And I hope you enjoyed today's show. And I'm going to end this. Still getting the hang of YouTube. And once again, that Suicide Prevention Lifeline is, let me pull up the number for you guys one more time. It is 1-800-273-8255. So let me, I have like a bunch of tabs open here. Thanks for joining.